What are homeschool parent requirements? My name is Becky with A Better Way to Homeschool, and in this episode, that's exactly what we're talking about. Are you qualified to educate your kids at home? Should you teach your kids? These are big questions when you're stepping into the big, scary world of homeschooling, but it doesn't have to be. In this video, I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to give you some links to some resources to help you dig deeper and hopefully boost your confidence a little bit. So the first thing is, what are homeschool parent requirements? This is a tricky question because what's required for you in your state or country may be different than what's required for me and our family in our state. So the very first thing that I need you to understand is that it's okay to homeschool your kids. It's also perfectly normal to not have all the information, all the little check boxes checked when you first begin your journey. What you're going to find behind the scenes is that there are people willing, ready, and waiting to answer your questions. So the first thing that I'm going to have you do is to take a look at your surrounding area. There are resources in your state. I'm assuming you're in the United States, but if not, you would have to dig deeper into your country. And you need to look at what are the minimum requirements for homeschooling in your local area. You may be fortunate to live in one of the more stricter states like Massachusetts or New York or even Pennsylvania. And so you're going to want to look at what's required to homeschool your kids, because that's super important that you check the boxes for the minimum requirements so that you don't find yourself in trouble later down the road. Some of the states that have the more relaxed homeschool regulations are states like Tennessee or Oklahoma or Washington or Alaska, as of the time that I'm recording this video. What you need to understand is that somewhere, some bureaucrat has sat in their office and has declared these are the things that homeschoolers need to do in order to be legal. And they're usually not that bad and not that scary, but it is really important that you dig down and you find what those standards and what those things are. In some cases, they will list all the subjects that you need to cover, and it'll look like a laundry list of, oh my word, how am I going to do this? It'll list things like math, reading, writing, literature, history, science, art, music, physical education. Don't panic. You do not need to do all the subjects on the same day or even in the same week. A lot of times you can overlap things that you're teaching. So if you're studying planets in science, you can also be studying the history of astronomy. You can be using planets or solar bodies as vocabulary or spelling words. You can do math surrounding planets and multiplication and things. You can interlace and overlap the subjects that you're teaching your kids. So don't panic. The real thing that you're trying to discover is, as a parent, do you have any legal requirements that your state is asking of you? In the state that I live in, we either need to be college educated or have a background of actual teaching, or have an administrator sign it off that we're okay to educate our own kids. At first, that was really scary for me. I didn't want to ask people for permission to educate my own kids. It's not that I am uneducated, it's that I got married young and I did not finish my college degree. And yet I know from the bottom of my core that I have the ability to train up my kids in the way I should go. And I keep saying this in our house, it really is a husband-wife team. We decided that we would educate our kids at home. So how did we get around that you need to be signed off by someone that says that you can educate your own kids? Well, I just had to ask. I had to go to our local school district and talk to the superintendent's office, and it was not a big deal. There was just a simple form to sign, and then we were off and running. Now, in your area, it may be different. So this is where the unfun part of homeschooling is figuring out all that legal stuff. And you have time. You don't need to panic. If you decide on Tuesday that you're going to begin educating your kids at home, you have weeks, months, even a year to kind of get all your ducks in a row and to pull together all the actual legal stuff that you need. And there's not that much. It's not that scary. It just feels scary because it's foreign and unfamiliar. But in the descriptions, I have linked a couple sites for you to look at. One, you'll be able to just tap in your state and it'll tell you what it is that your state requires for you to educate your kids. Don't panic. If you have questions or you need some suggestions on how you can attack that list, hit me up in the comments, because if I don't know the answer for you, I likely know someone that does. So been around this homeschooling block a few times, been at this for over 25 years. All 5 of our children have either graduated from college or are in college at this point. And we didn't mess them up too bad. They're all great kids. Some have bachelor's degrees, a couple have associate's degrees and are working towards degrees. There's so much time in this educating your kids business that today doesn't matter as much as the entire journey. Does that make sense? So dig into what your state requires. This is not something that you want to be looking at when your kids are running around crazy. Instead, this is one of those things that you brew yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and then you have the kids watch a movie, or after they go to bed, or you have them go play at somebody else's house for the afternoon that you trust. And then you just dig into this unfun stuff. What does the state say that your kids need to learn? What are the requirements that you as the educator need to have? A lot of times it's not that difficult. Then you can also reach out to your local superintendent's office and ask them questions about how you can pull your kids out of school and register them as being homeschooled. Not a big deal. It's typically a hassle of a form that you have to fill out every year. Not a big deal at all. There's also another site in there that I'm scrolling through right now that has things like facts on homeschooling. It talks about which states are the more strict states, which states are the more easy or less strict states for you to homeschool in. But whether you live on this side of the spectrum or this side of the spectrum, don't panic. It's really something that you just check the box, make sure you've filled the form and that you've filed with the right department, and then you go on your merry way educating your kids. A warning, you likely have to do the filing of the paper annually. That means every year. And there's usually a cutoff date. It's usually in the fall, the same way that you would register your kids for the local public school. And I just put a reminder in my calendar so that I don't forget to file the form every year, because we want to make sure that we dot all our I's and cross all our T's. The homeschooling part is what will take up most of your time. The paperwork side, the oh my goodness, am I doing everything that I'm supposed to do side, is the stuff that you may, like me, lose some sleep over at first. But don't lose heart. It's not common knowledge because most people send their kids to public or private school. Most people do not homeschool their kids. However, it's a growing number of us that educate our kids, and the hoops are there, which means it's still okay, and you still have the ability to hop through those hoops and teach your kids at home. So, what do you need to be a homeschool parent in your local area? You need to look at your state, you need to look at your district. Reach out to your local superintendent's office. They will have information for you. Reach out to local homeschool communities. Typically, even on Facebook, if you put your county and then in the search and you put the word homeschool, so San Diego County homeschoolers, different groups will pop up, and join your local groups. And they're typically filled with wonderful homeschool people that have gray hair like me that are able to help you figure out what it means to be a homeschooler in your local community. So don't forget to connect with local homeschoolers. You don't have to listen to everything they say, but they are a wonderful resource. And just know that at the end of the day, these are your kids. You have absolute right and ability to educate them. And taking the moment, taking the time to figure out how to do it so that nobody comes knocking on your door because your kids are truant when they're not really truant. It's worth it, but just reach out to people in your local community and see who are the people that you need to contact with. What are the forms that you need to do? Somebody there has gray enough hair that they can help you. So you've got this. Comment below. Let me know if you have any questions that I might be able to connect you with something, and I will see you in the next episode.